On March 14th, we have a lunar eclipse, which is also a full moon in the sign of Virgo. This is going to be a supercharged full moon. Let's first go over the general forecast so you know what to expect, and then afterwards we'll get into each of the rising signs. Whenever we have an eclipse, we see that the full moon or the new moon, whichever one it is almost supercharged. It still carries the same types of energies, but this time they can feel a little bit more faded. And if you don't like thinking about fate or things being set in stone already for us, you can also think of it in the sense that whatever is happening during this full moon is for our good and is pushing us in a direction where we can grow and continue to learn. During this lunar eclipse, the moon is in Virgo and it is conjunct with that south node. So we are being asked during this lunar eclipse to let go of our need for perfection, to let go of our self-criticism, and to let go of always needing to do things, and to let go of deriving our self-worth out of the service, the things that we do for others. And what I love about this lunar eclipse is that the moon is actually in the decan ruled by Venus, which shows to me that letting go of our self-criticism, trying to not always be perfect or to always improve ourselves, is actually the greatest form of self-love that we can show ourselves. The sun will be sextiling Uranus during the lunar eclipse. Therefore, whatever fated endings do come about, they might be quite sudden and they might be quite unexpected. We might not see them coming. However, do keep in mind, because this is a sextile, it's a supportive aspect, it might not be an ending that feels very harsh. It might rather feel like an ending that we had actually been wishing for the entire time, but just couldn't bring ourselves to do it ourselves. Think of you've been wanting to break up with your partner for a while and you just haven't been able to bring yourself to do it. Think of you've been wanting to leave a job for a while, but you just haven't been able to bring yourself to do it. And one last thing I will add for this general horoscope is that the moon is moving slower than usual. This means that it's a good idea to just take your time and digest what's happening, to let it sort of sink in before you necessarily say something about it or take an action on it or react to it. And whenever we also see a slow moon, we're also usually very resistant to change, and we can be quite pessimistic about the change that's happening. But just keep in mind that usually when the north and the south nodes are involved, it is a change that is for the greater good. It's for the good of ourselves. So just do take it slow, and hopefully whether the week following or the months following, you will be able to see how this change is something that you are grateful for. If you are curious to dive more into the North Node and the South Node, this year, by the way, they changed signs. They entered Virgo and Pisces. There is so much more to talk about the nodes and as well the eclipses in Virgo and Pisces for the next year and a half. So if you do want to dive more into that, I'll leave the link for a live I did right here for you. It's comprehensive, it's quite long, so you have plenty of information there. And now let's get into the rising sign horoscopes. Starting off with Aries rising or Aries sun signs. The eclipse takes place in your 6th house, which could mean that you are ending this need to be perfect with your routine. there is something that happens that forces you to stop being so critical and always improving your health or improving your body. Think of, for example, your gym closing and you're no longer able to go to it and to work out. Think of your fridge breaks, and for a couple of days, you're not able to eat the healthy food that you usually eat, and you have to eat takeout, and you're put in touch with this side of you that maybe feels a bit uncomfortable, but that says it's okay to let go of control every once in a while. And let's try to keep learning not to be so harsh and critical of ourselves. For Taurus risings and Taurus sun signs, the eclipse takes place in your 5th house. So it will be time with this eclipse to let go of the harsh criticisms you have towards your inner child. Perhaps when you were a child, you were maybe critiqued quite a bit, or you felt like the standards were quite high that you had to live up to. And as a result, today, when you get in touch with those sides of you, your creativity, your playfulness, your ability to have fun, joke around, do fun, exciting things, you might feel like there's a part of you that is always critiquing it, or always trying to make it better in some way, or always trying to figure out, yeah, but it cannot just be fun. It also needs to have a purpose, or it needs to help others in some way. And of course, this fated ending could come in many ways. Think of it, for example, that you have something that you love to do, but you also have turned it into a passion that can, help others. Let's say you have a YouTube channel, but all of a sudden something happens with that channel that forces you to have to do this hobby or to have to do this activity without necessarily this aspect of helping others. That you're forced in some way to only have to do it for yourself and for the joy that it brings you. For Gemini rising and Gemini sun signs, the eclipse takes place in your 4th house. So this could have a very outward manifestation for you. You might find that things look different around you once the eclipse is over. Because it's in your 4th house, we are talking about your home and family. Perhaps there is a real sense of self-criticism that has been instilled within you from your family, from your ancestors, passed on from generation to generation. And something might come up during this lunar eclipse that forces you to face that and forces you to start letting it go. Because the 4th house is also about our home. Maybe there's an event that happens that forces you to let go of trying to have a perfect home, trying to make sure everything is always improved, always striving for better. I cannot help but think of, something breaks in your house or something stops working for a bit, and for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, you might have to face with there being a little bit of chaos in the house and needing to let go of this perfectionism streak, or this streak of things need to be just perfectly aligned. For Cancer risings and Cancer sun signs, the eclipse takes place in your 3rd house. So there might be something happening during this eclipse, a faded ending, that what it forces you to do is it forces you to stop talking so critically to yourself and stop talking so critically to others as well. You might also feel like you are always trying to stay on top of the news. You're always trying to make sure that you have the most recent news. Maybe you're quite concerned with finding the most neutral news outlet, trying to always improve in that area. And something might happen during this time that forces you to face that and to start letting go of some of that control there. And I'll just add one more thing, Cancers. If you are somebody that strives to always express themselves in a perfect way, strives to always communicate in a way that is, perfect. We are talking about Virgo after all. There might be things that happen around this time that maybe prevent you from that and force you to start facing this uncomfortable feeling of, I cannot express myself very well right now. And that is okay. For Leo risings and Leo sun signs, the eclipse takes place in your second house. So with this eclipse, there might be faded endings that force you to stop trying to be perfect with your finances, to stop trying to always take care of yourself in a better way, stop trying to improve this sort of self-reliance, self-sufficiency that you take pride in, and be okay with admitting that sometimes we all need help and support, and that doesn't mean that you're any less or any less worthy of love. You might especially find the dynamic between getting up, doing things for yourself versus letting go, going with the flow, and finding that things do still happen for you, but they happen through the help of others, with the support of others. You might find that dynamic to be quite present during the eclipse. For Virgo risings and Virgo sun signs, this eclipse takes place in your first house. So you are one of the 4 zodiac signs who might really see very tangible outward manifestations of this lunar eclipse. After the eclipse is over, you might look around and literally see that your life looks quite different from when you started. Again, the moon is in your first house. So we are talking about letting go of this need to always appear to others as if you are perfect. Letting go of this need to maybe even critique the way you appear, how your hair looks or how your clothes are. Maybe you have a tendency to always be improving that part of yourself, maybe speech, or again, as I said, clothes. Something might happen during this time that, maybe forces you to look like crap. I don't want to make fun of tragic events, but, one example of this could be losing our wardrobe or not being able to access it for a couple of days. And we literally have to go around in our sweatpants, in our baggy t-shirt, our socks have holes. To sort of be faced with this part of sometimes it's okay to appear not so perfect. For Libra risings and Libra sun signs, the full eclipse takes place in your 12th house of spirituality. Therefore, there might be a faded ending when it comes to your spiritual routine, which is forcing you in some way to stop trying to always improve your routine or stop trying to always make it something better. Or maybe even to come to terms with the fact that you're perhaps always trying to make sure that your spirituality routine is somehow benefiting others or somehow of service to others. Maybe coming to terms that sometimes it's okay if our spiritual routine is sometimes just for ourselves and is sometimes just to help keep us sane. For Scorpio risings and Scorpio sun signs, the eclipse takes place in your 11th house. Therefore, you might find that there are some faded endings when it comes to your goals and when it comes to your communities or friendships. And specifically, they might be forcing you in the direction of showing you or forcing you to come to terms with the fact that you might be quite critical of your friends or of your communities. You might perhaps hold them to really high standards of perfection, which are very hard to achieve. Because the 11th house is also about our future goals, you might be faced with realizing and trying to let go of this need to constantly improve your future goals, to constantly try and better where you're heading, to always be thinking about the future and always trying to sort of perfect and move things around so that you can achieve this lofty vision of perfection that you have in your mind. For Sagittarius risings and Sagittarius sun signs, the eclipse takes place in your 10th house of your public image or your career. Therefore, this is a very prominent house, so you might find very tangible external events happening when the eclipse is over. You might look around and see that actually your life literally looks different than before the eclipse happened. Specifically, because this is the 10th house, you might find that there are fated endings in your career that force you to stop trying to be so perfect, that show you that you're always striving for this perfection or this image or this vision that's actually maybe not even achievable. This could manifest in many ways, but think of, something happens at work where it becomes very visible that maybe you made a mistake and it becomes very public in the company. But it could also be even this image of trying to show the moms at the local school that you're this perfect mom and that you have everything put together. But maybe certain things are happening around the eclipse and you end up having to drop your kids off late or having to show up in very bad clothes that you would feel very self-conscious about. For Capricorn risings and Capricorn sun signs, the eclipse takes place in your 9th house of beliefs and values. There might be certain events that happen that show you that you cannot categorize yourself, you cannot fit yourself in this one perfect, pretty box. You might be a type of person that really strives towards defining yourself, really strives towards having a very clear image of, well, I am of this religion, or I am of this political party, or I believe in whatever, the right to abortion, whatever those things they may be. I support this cause or this cause. I am an animal lover. But there might be things during this lunar eclipse that force you to stay curious and stay open. You might find that perhaps something happens that shows you, crap, you're not actually fully, you cannot fit fully into this one box. You might start to see that you have beliefs and values that start taking you out of that box. And this sort of perfectly defined image of what you believe in and what you value starts to shatter a little bit. For Aquarius risings and Aquarius sun signs, the lunar eclipse takes place in your 8th house. There might be fated endings that come about that force you to stop trying to improve how vulnerable you are, trying to always improve your intimacy or your intimate relationship with somebody. Perhaps something happens that just forces you to say, yeah, there is a certain spot or a certain part of myself that I might never show to somebody, that I might never open up and be vulnerable about. And realizing that this sort of imperfection is okay. It's not something to criticize. It's not something to be critical of yourself about. There will be a need for you to realize that it's actually okay to be this imperfect person that sometimes it needs independent time and sometimes is not the most open or most intimate person, that there might be a part of you that it can just never get there, it just doesn't want to get there, that you don't need to be this high and lofty, you don't need to achieve this high and lofty vision when it comes to your intimate life. And for Pisces rising and Pisces sun signs, the lunar eclipse takes place in Virgo in your 7th house. This is an angular house, so you might be one of the zodiac signs, 1 out of 4, that might see very tangible external influences of this lunar eclipse. This is in your house of relationships, Pisces. which means that you might come to faded endings when it comes to your relationships. Specifically, you might be forced to stop being so critical of who you are as a partner, and also stop being critical of your partner and how they appear in the relationship or how they treat you. And it might be time to, something might happen that forces you to stop being this sort of, to always be of service to your partner, to always be compromising and being there for them. Maybe something happens where all of a sudden you're the one who needs the help and needs the support. And even though it might feel uncomfortable, there's this sort of power dynamic that shifts where your partner has to help you. So those were all of the horoscopes for the upcoming lunar eclipse. I love that's in the decan of Venus. I love that we're all letting go of our need to criticize ourselves and always strive for improvement. And I love that we have a sextile with Uranus, which really shows a supportive energy of the sudden changes that are happening. And don't forget that if you want to learn more about this Virgo and Pisces axis, and therefore more about these Virgo and Pisces eclipses, then I will link the live that I did that talks all about it. We go way more in depth there. I recommend checking it out. Thanks for joining me. Happy lunar eclipse, and I hope to see you again soon.